Hello everyone, and welcome to this session on modernising statistical business processes, SD3. I'm Jessica Gardner and I work as a consultant to support improvements in producing and using official statistics. It's an honour to be joining you all here today from my home in Adelaide and to be moderating this session. Maria Fertalento from the ESCAP Statistics Division is my partner for this session, and Ing is our support person. And together we are very glad to welcome you to this session. We have a full hour and a half ahead with 6 papers being presented by authors from across Asia and the Pacific. They're coming to us from Malaysia, from Indonesia, China, Nepal and Pakistan. And for some of our presenters, this is the first time they're presenting at an international conference, and I know they're very much looking forward to this opportunity. There'll be 2 rounds of discussion during the session today, one towards the middle of the session and one towards the end. I know many of you are now quite familiar with Microsoft Teams thanks to us coming together in this format this week. But for those of you that are less familiar with this technology, let me just remind you how it works. You can ask comments, ask questions or make comments in 2 ways. You'll see this bar on your screen and you can click this button to access the chat box, and please feel free to type there your questions, your comments at any time during this session. Maria and I will be monitoring what's put there, and I will direct your questions to the presenters during the discussion time. If you want to take the floor and speak, click on the hand symbol and I will pass to you during the discussion time. Throughout the session, unless you're the one presenting, we ask that you keep your microphones on mute to avoid any background sounds interfering with the other presentations. And we also recommend that you keep your video off until we come to the discussion time, as it avoids distraction. All of the papers in today's session are linked by a common theme. They are practical examples of how national statistical systems are working towards transforming the production and sharing of statistical information. They show how standard models like the Generic Statistical Business Process Model, GSBPM, and new technologies are helping to change what we do, enabling statistical officers and systems to realise efficiencies and transform statistics for the better. I'm really excited about this session, so there's some great papers here and I know you'll find them very valuable. I'd like everyone to reflect on these couple of questions during the session. What is our use of business process mapping to identify opportunities and priorities for change? What are our experiences around this and the lessons we're learning? And also, what are the effective tools and concepts for modernisation that we are using to strengthen statistical information management and exchange? It'd be great to hear your views on this in the chat feed and during the discussion time. But now let's go to the main business of the session, and that is to hear from our excellent speakers from across the region. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Syiamimi Syabuddin from the Balance of Payments team at the Department of Statistics, Malaysia. Syiamimi's team has been working together with the Central Bank of Malaysia to shift away from separate overlapping data collection to one integrated survey for producing statistics on Malaysia's international investment position. Over to you, Syiamimi.
Okay. Thank you, Jessica. Before that, may I share my screen first? Okay, I hope everyone can see my slide presentation. So, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Syiamimi binti Syabuddin. I'm from Department of Statistics, Malaysia. Currently, I'm in charge on compiling investment precisely for financial account, for balance of payments and foreign direct investment for Malaysia. So this is my topic of presentation, title of Modernization in Compiling Malaysia's International Investment Position through Integrated System under Action Area D, Modernizing Statistical Business Process. So for the introduction, in this era of new technologies and modern ways of capturing data, the approaches to modernize the statistical business process has become a challenge and one of the most concerned matter for NSO. So in this regard, Department of Statistics Malaysia with DOSM has embarked on the journey of implementing the best practices in obtaining data for compiling the IIP statistics. Prior to 2008, DOSM has applied the conventional method by using hard copies of questionnaires to collect the IIP data from the respondents and companies. So at the same time, Central Bank of Malaysia, which is BNM, also conducted a semi to compile the external debt statistic, which is this one is clearly to notice that both agencies carry out the same exercise to collect and compile data on same subject, which eventually led to inefficiency and effectiveness in use of resources. So subsequently, both agencies decided to collaborate the survey, which is known as IIP Joint Survey, that will be implemented through modernized and advanced system, namely International Transactional External Position System ITAPS. But nonetheless, there were several drawbacks of ITAP system due to huge amount of data reported in the system, causing a delay in transferring the data to DOSM survey. And then at the same time, DOSM could not access the detailed information of the reporting entities in the system. So the system has also have a limitation to DOSM, which DOSM does not have access for the system, especially when required further clarification on the issues regarding the submitted data by particular reporting entities. Hence, there is a need to develop a more modernized and integrated system in line with the increasing demand of the international financial statistics and to cater the requirement of DOSM in compiling this statistic. So in 2017, by investing minimum amount of money, the system was enhanced to ESS, which is External Sector Statistics System, by taking into consideration of several drawbacks of previous ITAP system for data compilation. So the system are improvised and more convenient, especially for companies to submit their reports. So for ESS also, we are adding more variables are covered in the system on granular basis and also have a better interface for user-friendly as for companies to submit their data. So next, including in conducting this quarterly IIP survey, the data items following as recommended by BPM6 that we apply as the must reported by reporting entities. So this survey compass on data on position, transaction and non-transactional data, and the coverage is 57 financial institutions, 3,800 entities, including an investor, custodians and fund managers, and also custodians that have international financial transactions. These entities are as at the latest data that we captured. And then the reporting requirements are online submission. The deadline is 15 days after end of reporting period. So in applying this system, we have received a submission status 100% response rates towards the end of collecting this data. So as for output, DOSM is the official compiler for balance of payment, international investment position statistic, coordinated direct investment survey. As for Bank Negara, central bank's publication, there are official release for external debt statistics, coordinated portfolio investment survey, and international banking statistics. So next, the system architecture and process. The system architecture and process are divided into four. First is submission by respondent through ESS. Next, data transmission. Next, Third is data process, and last is report generating. As for submission by respondent through ESS, the ESS was developed based on the ideas, concept, and recommendation by IMF. So in this front end of module, namely ESS, the respondents are required to report their external statistics, financial assets and liabilities, following the accounting part. So the reporting entities are from banking institution, non-bank entities, institutions, Labuan offshore entities, government agencies, and central bank. So the reporting is done similarly to our financial statement, with further categorized by direct investment, portfolio investment, financial derivative, other investment, and also income component. So respondent will be given a unique ID and password to order report their financial assets and liabilities after end of period reporting. And then in addition to the compilation, in the front end modules are also equipped with built-in business validation rules to alert and prevent on possible misreporting by both the respondents and compilers. So for data transmission, we use a BNM server because this is due, BNM was the official institution for financial, and the report generated from ESS will be stored at staging area of DOSM. The data later will be processed and will be transferred using the ETL process to DOSM warehouse, where this process will allow the data to be used for generating report, publication, and visualization, and it is carried out in daily and weekly basis for quarterly. So meanwhile, a report regarding to the status of transfer data will be also be prepared. The system allows to generate daily report in order monitoring submission from the company. So there are 47 variables in this database, including data report by respondents and lookup table from those for purpose of mapping. They have 3 types of data transmission, which is a daily data, quarterly, and also lookup table. Okay. Okay, next is a data process, which is the system will identify and notify data with issues by business rule setting. So during this process, data will be processed at staging database, and whereby the assigned officer will do data quality checking throughout the database. The assigned officer will be validate if they have any wrong reporting from the companies and will be issued back to their to amend their reporting. And also this system will be identify the data with issues throughout the business rule setting. So next for report generating, they have 3 report can be generated from the system. First is report generator. We have automatic report that can produce from the system, which is a fixed report. We have 13 reports. Filtered reporting, which is we have to provide to our stakeholder after the reporting period, and also ad hoc reporting and visualization also. So for the visualization, the reports in the form of visual and graphic can arrange and manage during in the system. Several visualizations have been applied, such as pie chart, map, and so on. And also we can do analysis on the system. For tabulation, this is module that has been used to produce publication by BOP in quarterly and annual basis. And then the data and reports can be downloaded, printed, and custom dashboard from this system. So to end my presentation, for conclusion, using this implementation of system, our department can fully utilize the human resources and able to produce new statistics as the system needs fewer human resources as compared to before. And these systems replace the conventional data collection whereby fewer human resource is needed. In fact, the system is able to notify and remind the reporting entities to submit their report before the deadline, and no longer hard copy response or conventional reporting. Data collections using this system are guaranteed with 100% response rate, whereby reporting entities give cooperation by submitting the data online. And then this is can make a cost effective due to less paperwork and can give a time efficiency because the release time of BOP and IP statistics can reduce from 8 weeks to 6 weeks after the reporting period. So this is my presentation. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, for that excellent example of transforming business with one of your partners in another part of the statistical system. Thank you very much. Please add your questions for Mimi to the chat box, and we'll come back to those in the discussion after our next two presenters. So now I'd like to move straight on to introduce our second speaker, Ms. Dewi Kartika Megasari from Statistics Indonesia, who will share with us the work that they are doing there to modernise BPS's business-based surveys. Over to you, Dewi.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Before starting my presentation, let me share our slides. Can you hear it now?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, then. And good afternoon. I'm Dewi from BPS Statistics Indonesia. In this opportunity, we would like to present about how BPS, our organization, manages to harmonize its business-based surveys through business process reengineering. And as a national statistics office, BPS is facing several main issues that could hamper its objective to produce good quality statistics. Those issues are, among others, silo statistical business process. As an illustration, I make a picture here. You can see where subject matters conduct the planning, design, collecting, and processing of their own surveys. This practice causes overlapping questions between surveys as well as overlapping schedule of field data collection, which may increase workload of enumerators significantly. And the second problem is high respondent burden caused by overlapping surveys that are targeted to the same respondents, and some surveys also ask relatively similar questions. The high burden on respondents make them reluctant to participate in BPS surveys, and this condition leads to low response rate, especially on business-based surveys, which usually ranging from 60% to 80%. And to address those issues, BPS has been undertaking a modernization. Here, we provide you with just a glimpse of BPS modernization. In 2015, we constructed SBFA, or Statistical Business Framework and Architecture. The construction of SBFA referred to GSBPM, GSIM, and also GAMSO. The SBFA provides an underlying structure for BPS modernization program, with the overall aim is to improve the quality of statistics. And based on this SBFA, BPS undertakes its statistical transformation, its IT transformation, and also human resource transformation. In terms of statistical transformation, BPS re-engineers its statistical business process from silo approach into a more integrated one. Before that modernization business process is fully implemented, we have to test the efficiency and practicality of that modernization program. One way is by conducting pilot study. The study that we are going to discuss in this opportunity is about the integration of 2 monthly business-based surveys. In this study, we did 3 main different things from the original surveys. First is we utilize Statistical Business Register, or SBR, as the sampling frame. Second, we standardized the commodity classification code between the 2 surveys. And also, we constructed new business process, which was based on the business process reengineering for business-based surveys. The boxes you see here in this slide corresponds to the box color in the previous slide. The yellow box, if you see the yellow box, it shows you the surveys being integrated. They were the monthly large medium industry survey. And the second survey being integrated is the producer price survey. The main reason for choosing the two surveys to be integrated was because they have the most similarities in terms of questions and also sampling unit. In the blue box, you can see that we updated SBR database from various sources to make it ready as the sampling frame for the integrated survey. In terms of commodity classification, we standardized the code using Indonesia commodity classification, as can be seen in the green box. And another new thing in the study shown in the orange box, which was that the integrated survey offered multi-mode data collection, which were paper-based survey or PAPI, and also web-based survey or KW. Besides, I mentioned before that the survey have most similarities. However, despite those similarities, the two surveys also have differences influenced by their objectives. The differences are in terms of sampling methodology, their time references, and also classification codes of commodities. We found it challenging at the beginning to mitigate the differences for the integrated survey, but we could make it anyway. The right column shows you how we mitigated the differences to ensure the integrated survey could still fulfill the objectives of the original two surveys. And this is the results of the study. In terms of response rate, it reached only 38% in September 2019 and kept decreasing in the next 2 months. From that response rate, the percentage of establishments providing complete data was even slower, which was only around 20%. And due to the very low response with the complete data, only 43 commodities out of 145 commodities in the basket required for the calculation of producer price index were obtained. Therefore, the result of the pilot study could only be used for the calculation of simulation index, not the real index. But from the pilot study, we also get feedback from respondents. It shows that the percentage of respondents prefers to be surveyed through KW was only slightly higher, 51%, compared to the percentage of respondents choosing paper-based survey. Another finding was that 97% respondents considered the questions clear, while only 3% requires more information for questions regarding prices. It means that we're on the right track in terms of questionnaire. And from the pilot study, we learned several things. First is regarding the low response rate. Sufficient socialization about a survey is required to build awareness of the potential respondents. We also need to build engagement with respondents so that they become well informed about the benefits of participating in BPS surveys. From the side of enumerators, we found that it is important for the enumerators to have good appearance and communication skill to meet the respondents. Next thing we learned is about the decreasing response rate, which was caused by the preference of the establishment to provide data quarterly instead of monthly as requested by BPS. Therefore, BPS should also take this issue into consideration while arranging a business-based survey. Although there are differences among surveys, integration of several common surveys is very possible to do by providing a suitable mitigation. The last but not the least thing we learned is that, in our opinion, statistical business register is one of the most effective modernization tools for BPS, as it has the potential to significantly reduce the respondent burden. That is the last of our presentation, and thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dewi. To you and your co-authors, Shafa and Nefriana, for showing us so clearly the context of your study and what you found and the lessons learned. It's extremely valuable for others in the region looking to do similar things. Please, everyone, add your comments and questions to the chat box and we'll come back to those. I see some great questions are already coming in for Mimi. But after we have the next presentation, we'll have a chance to come back to those questions. I'm now pleased to welcome Mr. Zhang Chunjian from the National Bureau of Statistics in China. Zhang is going to talk to us about the work he's been doing to build a statistical cloud. Over to you, Zhang.
Okay, let me first share my screen. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Zhang Chunjian from the National Bureau of Statistics of China. The name of my presentation is Strategy and Practice of China, Data Middle Platform Construction. It is about NBS experience on data governance using the data middle platform strategy. I'm very glad to share with all of you. My presentation is mainly divided into 4 sections. The first is the problem we are going to solve, as the data island problem. And the second part is the methodology we employed.
Zhang, oh, go ahead. I think we hear you again. Just a few seconds ago, the sound dropped out. Can you speak again?
The second one is about the methodology we employed in our study. And the third one is about NBS practice of DMP construction in the statistical cloud. And the fourth one is our discussion on the role and effect of DMP. Okay, let's move on. As the name suggests, data islands means that data is isolated and scattered like islands. Data isolation is manifested in 3 aspects or 3 levels. They are: the first, in organization aspect, data belongs to different departments and operates independently. And in storage aspect, data is stored independently, maintained independently, and isolated from each other. While in logic aspect, data is loosely connected or even unconnected and cannot be integrated. Generally, there are 2 directions to solve the data island problem. The first one is called top-down direction, also known as business-driven, and the second one is bottom-up direction, which also called data-driven. In our study, we employ the DMP approach. It belongs to the second direction. From page 6 to 8 in section 2, I will introduce the basic concept about a middle platform, which is the superclass of DMP. Due to time limit, I'll skip this slide, these 3 slides. Now, I will focus on the DMP method we have adopted in our study. There are 3, here is the definition about DMP. It is an enterprise-level comprehensive data capacity platform. It focuses on the reuse of data-related capabilities and breaks through the technical barrier of data production, storage, analysis, service, and circulation. And of course, it is a global bottom-up solution for data island problem. There are 3 common cognitions for the construction of a data middle platform. Cognition 1, the basic premise for an enterprise to build a data middle platform is that it has a certain scale of informative business, and the stock of the expected incremental business is diversified. Business is coupled. The second, cognition 2, data middle platform is a strategic choice for enterprises development. And cognition 3, data middle platform is a necessary condition for enterprise innovation. Corresponding to the 3 cognitions, MBS has satisfying conditions as follows. First, to cognition 1. Statistical application softwares in NBS are all based on unified metadata, regime design, report design, user and authority management. And second, they all use the same source roster, survey objects, and the same norm and standard for sampling. And third, the process of data collection, examination, summary, and acceptance in data processing are mostly similar. And fourth, data processing and publishing, archiving management, and further in-depth analysis also follow consistent management standards. And to cognition 2, it is based on the development of the statistical cloud, which is positioned by the NBS as a strategic project of national statistics and provides a good opportunity for overall planning and governance of statistical data resources. Well, to cognition 3, with the 3 onto cloud goals, the statistical cloud aims to create a cloud statistics to deeply change the statistical production method and innovate the way statistical data serves government decision-making and social governance. I will introduce details about the DMP of NBS. The following pages include the architecture diagram as shown in the figure. You can see
We lost your slides then for a moment, Jane, but are you able to reshare your desktop?
Oh, okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well.
Okay. Is based on a statistical cloud. As shown in the figure, the DMP is present there. The front end, the middle, and the back end.
Sorry, Jane. Having said we hear you well, that was the case, but right now the sound is cutting in and out a bit. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't have.
Yes, I think we'll have to stop there. Sorry, Jane, and we may come back to that in the question time in a moment to see if we can get that last bit of your presentation. But thank you so much for taking us through most of your presentation then. Most appreciated. It's a fascinating look at this technology that you're working with and transforming. And I'm sure there'll be some questions from others about how to go about this. So I would like now to spend the next 15 minutes on some discussion. Shiamimi, I think we'll first go back to your presentation on how the Department of Statistics Malaysia has worked with the central bank there to combine what was previously 2 surveys into one. There's a number of questions that have come up for you. The first is from Winnie, who asks, in your paper, you said the survey compiles data on transaction and non-transactional data and also collects currency statistics. So can Malaysia compile the full IOP statement with valuation changes and other changes? And can you release the IOP by currency?
Okay, thank you, Jessica. As for question the number 1, I assume this is a number 1. So for the question, for the answer is yes. We do collect a complete full IIP report by quarterly, including transactional and non-transactional item. And as for the other changes, we provide a column in the systems. We provide column or box for company to key in their figure of other adjustments, and then they have compulsory submit their underlying reasons. They can state in the system the underlying reason that they submitted for other changes. So we can clearly see their reasons is reliable or not for the other changes, as the other changes is also only related to non-transactional item. And then for the valuation, we also have the calculation of valuation, which is one is valuation for price changes, and then the currency changes. For the currency changes, we set automatically in the system, but for the price changes, they have to submit their figure of their price changes of shares. And then for the currency, currently we have only published in the MYR currency, but in our system, we able to company to key in their figure in any currency, and then our system will convert it automatically using the current currency.
Thanks, Chair Mimi. And there's also a lot of interest in your ability to get the 100% response rate.
Yes.
Victor asks, how did you achieve this? What went into getting that response rate? Can you share a bit more? And Dewi also makes the observation, apart from the changes in terms of the portal, what else did you do to increase compliance?
So for the submission of 100%, we received, this is quite from 2017, we received more than 90% of submission rate, response rate. Just this lately, we receive 100%, which we following our practices, we do send a reminder to all those companies who are registered in our system that we captured. And then we are also doing some engagement with the company. We set off an appointment with the company, and then we do company visits to those companies who are listed under the huge amount of transactions most of the quarter, and then we detect some of company that have a huge stock in non-resident countries. So we following up with them through the company visit. We understand their scenario, and then we comply them to submit through the system for regularly and compulsory for them.
Great, thank you, Shia Mimi. And there's one more question from Nefriana this time on whether you had difficulties reaching out to your partners, such as the central bank, to establish some kind of cooperation agreement that guarantees the data flows from them to you, and if there were any laws that were perhaps getting in the way of data sharing in the first place.
For collaborating with MOU, we have do signs of MOU agreement with Central Bank of Negara from Malaysia. This for each agency, we have carry out respective roles and responsibilities that we mentioned in the MOU agreement. And then this MOU are guided by the legal framework, which is in DOSM, we namely as Statistics Act 1965 and revised of 1989. And then the Central Bank, they use an Act of Central Bank of Malaysia Act 2009. And then this legal provision provide a clear guidance for the compilation and dissemination of IIP statistics through this system and joint survey. So these collaborative efforts of these two agencies in compilations, doing quality assessments and disseminations in accordance with SDDS. We are following SDDS dissemination and accordance.
Thank you, and thanks for those great questions from our participants. There's also one for you, Dewi, from Jan Salinas from the Philippines, and he's asking what specific measures does BPS implement or plan to implement to improve your response rate?
Okay, Jessica, Shafa will handle the question. So please let Shafa.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Shafa.
Yes, we admit that we have insufficient time for socialization. So the first thing we have to change is we're planning to do sufficient socialization and also conduct FGD and with establishment to build their awareness. And second is to a bit adjusting the time reference of the survey, which is from monthly to quarterly to reduce their respondent burden, the burden of the respondent. And third, we have to also update the our business register regularly. So I think that's the improvement we may take for the next step. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And another question has just come up from Jomar Petrus Yeres, also for your team, Dewi and Nefriana and Shafa. Aside from having a strong and modernised system for data collection, did the government have a strong enforcement or policies for the establishment to comply with the business-based surveys?
Okay, then just fast answer for this question. The law enforcement hasn't been that strong to like press the establishment to comply with the BPS business-based surveys. So starting from several years ago, we are starting to, improve our statistical law in order to make establishment more aware to BPS surveys and also a bit press them to participate on our surveys. But currently we haven't had a strong regulation to ask or to force the establishment to participate. But we're going to improve it.
Great, thank you, Dewi. Now, I might try and connect back to you, Chang. Are we able to make that connection? And if so, you may like to continue your presentation if possible.
Yes, I'm here.
Great, we hear you well now.
Okay, let me share my screen. Let's start here. As we define, can you hear me now? Can you see the screen?
Yes, to both. Thank you.
Okay. As we define, SDMP has 6 core capabilities. They are the first one, data collection and exchange, data aggregation and integration, data organization and processing, data management and governance, data modeling and analysis, data service and applications. Of course, the architecture is only a static design. To make it run, we select the container plus microservices architecture as its operation carrier, which can best fit the mechanism of DMP, because it splits the monolithic application into multiple small services with high cohesion and low coupling according to the business field, and it runs in an independent process deployed in container. They can all be developed and maintained by different teams using different protocol stacks, languages, and storage. And also it uses lightweight communication mechanisms such as the HTTP RESTful APIs. Here is a figure of the architecture of container plus microservices. Now it comes to the conclusion and the discussion. We brought the role of DMP or MPS. Of course, first it solves the data island problem of MPS itself, and also it tolerates the entry of various data sources. It builds statistical big data platform, and finally, It can help transform official statistics from statistical analysis to predictive analysis, from single domain to cross domain, from passive analysis to active analysis, and from non-real-time to real-time analysis. And our vision on the DMP includes empowering data partners through data servitization and cultivating healthier and more dynamic statistical data ecology. And finally, it can help statistical data integrated into the web of data. Oh, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you all for listening. Thanks.
Thanks. Well done, Zhang. I'm glad we could make that connection work again. And while others are thinking of their questions for you, I've got one to get the discussion started. What are your recommendations to other national statistical officers that might want to develop their own statistical cloud? Where should they start?
According to our experience, as a kind of private cloud, the construction of a statistical cloud should comprehensively consider business needs, IT technology accumulation, and the costs. For most statistical offices, before considering to develop a statistical cloud, they should seriously check whether they have the necessity, whether their business scale is large, whether they have large amount of equipment, and whether their team force is powerful. In the end, whether they have enough budget, as the construction of private cloud needs a lot of investment. So if any of the answer is no, then the benefits brought by cloud may not be higher than they pay. So they do not need to spend a lot of money to build a private cloud. Well, if for those really want to try using the cloud, I think they can start from renting a public cloud. Then during this process, they can accumulate experience, gradually transit to hybrid cloud. That's to say the public cloud plus private cloud, and finally realize the construction of their own private cloud. That is a relatively safe and feasible way. That's my answer, Jessica.
Great, thank you so much, Chang. I think there's some reassuring advice there. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. Thank you. If others have questions for Chang, please add them to the chat window and we can come back to them in the next round of discussion. But for now, it's time to move on to our next presenter. I'm very pleased to welcome our next speaker, Mr. Nanda Kumar Charu from Nepal, and he is going to speak to us about the lessons learned from using the ARIMA model to predict international tourist arrivals. Over to you, Nanda. Nanda, are you on mute? We saw you a moment ago, but now I can't hear you.
Thank you. The team of 2020 ESCAP Statistics. I am Nanda Kumar Charu, Department of Statistics, EU, Nepal. In these sessions, I am going to present on the topic forecasting of international goods arrival in Nepal and application of ARIMA. How to use ARIMA models to forecast future points. This slide is sharing. Please. have to define international tourism. What is international tourism? It can be defined.
Nanda, sorry to interrupt you. Your voice is very quiet. Are you able to speak slightly closer to the microphone?
Yes, I am using microphone.
Yes, that's better. We hear you better now. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Let us introduce at first what is tourism. Tourisms are those persons, people who temporarily visit across international borders and remain for the more than 24 hours. It is a leading economic industry in the world. It holds a number of employee participants in the social products, national income, and total consumptions. And also, it plays a significant role in developing gross domestic products and creating various jobs. It directly or indirectly contributes to the sustainable development goals. The major focus of the benefits of tourism are process of creating jobs and direct impact on the GDP. At first, the study by European Parliament Research Service tourism activities in the accommodation and food service sectors had almost 10 million jobs, third of total EU employment in 2003. Tourism is an important growing profession to many countries of the world and forms as a growing portion of the world, so that we have to forecast the number of tourism arrival in every countries. But I have to use the total number of tourist arrival in Nepal. That makes us frames and plan and policies for the tourism sectors. Over 238 million jobs are created by the travel and tourism economy, had and contributed to 9.9% of global GDP in 2000 and expected to provide more than 296 million jobs and 10.5% of global GDP by 2080. So that it have to create massive volume of job vacancies and contribute in the macroeconomic indicators like GDP. The main objective of this paper is to predict the international tourist arrival in Nepal. That results make us to tourist industry of Nepal. The tourist industry has been impacted on processing of job generations, revenue, GDP, and directly or indirectly to the sustainable development goals. So that we have to forecast. How to forecast? Here I have data taken from the Ministry of Culture, Tourism, Civil Aviation Planning and Evaluation Division, Research and Statistics Sections, Nepal, and data has been taken from 1993 to 2018 years, a long time series data. Here, from 1997, it will grow up and slowly decreasing at 2020 and increasing slowly. After then, in 2015, there was an earthquake occurred, so that the number of tourist arrivals became decreased and being increased till the date. But due to COVID-19, it makes us, I cannot say anything about predictions. In these models, in time series particularly, RMA is highly used when the data shows the evidence of non-stationary time series. How it was used, an autoregressive moving average PQ model has an autoregressive type constant or an average moving types components. The model is given here. Its past or lags value is independent variables to forecast itself. So it is a univariate models, but we can use various multivariate time series models like VAR model, vector error correction model, distributed lag models, but I have to use only ARIMA models. Then how to use it? Let's show. I have to use Box and Jenkins methodology to forecast the future points or tourism sectors. At first, in Bugs and Jenkins methodology, we have to check whether it is stationary or not. Stationary can be checked by various methods, by autocorrelation function, partial autocorrelation functions, unit root tests, but I have to use only autocorrelation function, partial autocorrelation function, and Bugs and Jenkins methodology. Young Bugs is statistics.
And sorry to interrupt again. We're having trouble keeping up with where you are in the slides. So if you can see them, we're up to the slide that is marked Part 2 methodology model with some dot points on it. So if you can see your slides on the screen, let us know when to go forward.
Okay.
Great. And also with the sound, I'm afraid it's a bit of a balancing act in terms of being able to hear you clearly. We need you to speak close to the microphone, but not too close, because then we start to get distracting sounds and we don't hear your voice so well.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead. Let us know what slide we should be on.
Okay. Bayesian information criteria have been used to model selections. We can see the results. Here we can see the tourist arrivals numbers in these graphs. How can we identify the ARIMA models? There are 3 parameters, P, D, and Q. Autoregressive parameters P, differential equations D, and moving average Q. Then estimating these parameters is very crucial stage. If we can identify these 3 parameters P, D, Q, then we can easily predict. How can we find autoregressive models? Here, this point is in tourist arrival partial autocorrelation function give us autoregressive of order 1, and tourist arrivals ACF autocorrelation function give us our moving average points. Here it is not exponentially through, so that its order is 1, and tourist arrivals autocorrelation functions autoregressive lag 1. After differentiating it, it will give us stationary. Here we can see, and Young-Bucks statistics also give us stationary time series. Then it is ready to predict future points. We can find the 3 parameters P, D, and Q. The value of 3 parameters P, D, Q are 1, 1, 1. These figures give us mean and variance constant over the time, so that it is a strong indication of stationary time series. It gives us better results. All these, after this forecasting, we can check the diagnostic test. If diagnosis is within the interval, there are also limits. If the residuals within the interval, then it is better model. Here, the model's accuracy is R square is 0.81, mean absolute percentage is 13.48, normalized BIC is 23.6. There are so many models. We have to take different possible values of P, D, and Q. We get different possible models, but we have to select among them based on R square, MAPE, and normalized PIC. When R square is greater, MAPE is smaller, and normalized PIC is lesser as compared to other models, then it is best model. Here residual analysis within the limit, so that our model is best. Then we can predict through these models, and we can get the number of tourist arrival in 2019 was 1,288,564, and in 2020 we can predict these 1 values. This shows that our number of tourist arrival in Nepal is being rising up. It gives us format, plan, and policies. Conclusions. Tourist Nepal plays a significant role in strengthening the economy, particularly in terms of job creation and contribution on GDP. As per the latest trends shown in figure, tourist arrival is rising, implying tourist industry is rising, and its effect contribute to the real economic growth by stimulating up growth of GDP, creating new jobs, motivating entrepreneurship, encouraging investment, etc. So this research forecasts upward trend and international tourist arrival will continue in the future, point to positive impulses and outlook of a continuous increase by 2030. Clearly higher the tourist number in general, higher the economic growth is. Tourism can impact at community levels, not only community levels, but also play a role on global GDP. The paper clarifies that the proposed model does not deliver the solution, but one is supporting finding international tourists. Cannot do the job all by the models, but outcomes may be presented as a frameworks. It can be used as a frameworks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nanda, for your presentation and your contribution to this session. I'm sorry to our participants that we did lose our place a little bit in your presentation, but I think you got your main messages across really well, and we know there's a lot behind the work that you're doing to predict international tourist arrivals, and so encourage you, the participants, to access Nanda's paper and the papers from everybody in this session. It's now my pleasure to pass over to our next speaker, Ms. Tri Listian Ingram from Statistics Indonesia. Tri is presenting about their work to look at the potential for using web scraping of mobile phone price data as inputs to the consumer price index. Over to you, Tri. Ying, we don't hear the sound. Would you like to try that again from the start?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Tri Listian Ingram from BPS Statistics Indonesia. Recently, me and my colleague Nivriana have been testing our idea to utilize a price comparison website to produce hedonic price indices for mobile phone. And I'm honored to share our result with you today. Field enumeration is the main data collection method for compiling official statistics, including CPI, or Consumer Price Index. One of the places for collecting data for CPI is actually a supermarket. However, after COVID-19, even going to a supermarket is like invading a battlefield. We don't know when the situation will go back to normal. Even maybe the new normal will never be the same. What can we do then in terms of data collection? Well, since going out is too risky and we are encouraged to stay at home as much as possible, one of the solutions is to gather the data online. Although it has to be kept in mind that online data will be different from the samples used in current CPI, but it is definitely worth to try. In this study, we focus only on one CPI constituent commodity, the commodity we love the most, that is mobile phone. Mobile phone is one of the products that is most frequently bought online, which make it reasonable to use its online price. And due to rapid development, new types of mobile phone are introduced every month, having improved quality than before. Hedonic method is a way to deal with commodity undergo rapid quality change. Online sales for mobile phones spread across various e-commerce sites. Instead of looking into every single e-commerce one by one, we use price comparison website. In this case, we use iPrice. iPrice displays product information along with the prices from various e-commerce in a single result page. With price and specification of the mobile phone available, it allows us to develop hedonic model. The research method began with web scraping for iPrice using Python algorithm. Unfortunately, the scraped data still contains noise, missing values, and inconsistencies on the specification, so it needs to be cleaned and compiled. We revert to GSM Arena to check phone specification validity. Then we construct the price index using clean data. The graph shows the amounts of scraped data conducted each week. Scraping was conducted weekly for 13 weeks since January to March 2020. The average clean records ready for analysis are slightly over than 1,000 records. It means that the sample are often 1,000 non-unique mobile phones for each week. Each scraping process takes about 30 minutes. We calculate the price index using 4 methods: fixed basket, match model, time dummy, and double imputation. Fixed basket and match model are calculated using pure price comparison over periods without any statistical model involved. The difference is that the fixed basket compare only products that are available through all periods, while the match model compare the matched products in 2 successive periods. Time dummy and double imputation employed a hedonic model, but in a different way. Time dummy is kind of direct approach, while double imputation is for indirect approach. Time dummy applied hedonic regression with period as dummy variable. The coefficient of the dummy variable is the index itself, while double imputation is a combination of match model and hedonic regression to measure price movements. It is an adaptation from the work by ABS, so I suggest you to refer for the paper from ABS to know the detail about the model. This is the result of our study, weekly price indices for mobile phone by the method employed. The time dummy gave the most distorted results of all. And although almost coincide, the other 3 methods are actually having gaps between them. However, match model and double imputation are almost in a squeeze line because of the proportion of unmatched data was very small. It is actually what differs the 2 models between match model and double imputation. We compare our double imputation index to official index for mobile phone in CPI. According to the research from ABS, double imputation is the best method which overcomes limitation in other methods. The index produced in this paper seems to be more volatile, and it is likely due to the dynamic nature of online prices. However, the series is still too short to draw a conclusion, since we only have 3 months in here, January, February, and March 2020. The first conclusion of the paper is that data scraping was reliable for collecting a large amount of data in short time with minimal resources. And the second is that the indices calculated using online price seem to be more volatile than CPI. And the last is that we want to underline that there is a possible bias in data collection due to the algorithm used in price comparison website, which we cannot control. We have two questions for the discussion. First is how BPS has used the mapping of current business process to identify opportunities and priorities for change. Well, BPS has done the mapping and identified the opportunities and priorities for change generally, but not yet specifically for the use of big data for CPI. And the second is, what is the most effective modernization tool and concept which has been implemented in BPS? I think the answer is big data. Generally, big data tools has been used and beneficial for BPS such as Hadoop DataStage, IBM Cloud, and IBM DB2. However, CPI is still in the stage of research and have not used most of the tool regularly. Well, that's all for me. Thank you so much for the attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thanks so much, Tree, for your great presentation, and to your co-author Nefriana for sharing this work in this forum. It's great to follow how BPS is building on experiences of other national statistical offices and trying these approaches to see what may be feasible now and in the future. Please add your questions to Tree and her co-author in the chat box. So now to our final speaker, Mr. Mohammed Bashir Janjua, who is the Joint Census Commissioner at the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. Mr. Janjua will be speaking about their work to use GIS technology for mapping census enumeration areas. Over to you, Mr. Janjua.
Thank you, Jessica. Good afternoon and assalamu alaikum to everyone. Here is the sequence of my presentation, that is a brief introduction and digitization methodology and procedure adopted for digitization of rural and urban area blocks, and then results and the final conclusion. Introduction. Geographical Information System, GIS, is a computer-based system that allows the users to store, analyze, manage, and edit the geographical data. When using analog technology, the maps serve two functions: as a storage medium for spatial data and as a medium of communication between humans about spatial relationships. While digital technology has separated these functions into a digital database containing spatial data and the ability to create maps from the digital data through automated system. GIS gained fame as modern mapping techniques in the late 20th and early 21st century. Why mapping the census survey area is required? Map is the visual representations of Earth's pattern as a whole on flat surface drawn with conventional signs corresponding to predefined scale with an aim to illustrate maximum information while occupying minimum space. Census and survey mapping is the process of dividing the country into enumeration and supervisory areas for proper coverage of area and population during census and surveys. The enumeration areas are called enumeration blocks, EBs, and each EB consists of 200 to 250 houses as an average, while circle charges and census districts are supervisory monitoring areas for the collection of data for census and surveys. Census and survey mapping is the process of dividing the country into enumeration supervisory areas for proper coverage of area and population during census and surveys. GIS applications are now used in census survey mapping, extending the scope of geographical data analysis, evaluation, retrieving, and sharing with greater accuracy. Methodology. First 5 censuses were executed in Pakistan utilizing manually prepared and enumeration and supervisory area maps And it is first time in the history of census taking in Pakistan, we use digitized urban area maps. And mapping procedure adopted for the census 2017 for both rural and urban areas is as follows. For the big urban areas, 2 types of maps were prepared. Master map, which covered the entire municipality for delimitation of census charges and circles, and sub-unit map to delimit the census blocks. For small urban areas having population up to 50,000, according to previous census, only single type of map was designed to delineate both census circles and census blocks. In case of rural areas, Tehsil Taluka maps were prepared to delimit census charges and circles, while census blocks EBs were demarcated on MOSA maps in respect of settled and unsettled areas. Here is the procedure of urban blocks digitization. The steps involved in this process: the first step is procurement of manual map from the local government. Then demarcation of enumeration essays and supervisory areas on it. Next step is procurement of satellite images. Then digitization of ground features and EAs and essays with the help of manual maps. Next step is field verification and collection of POIs, that is point of interest, with the help of GPS. Then lab work. And the final, we get the block map digitized for further usage in census and surveys. Here is the procedure of rural block digitization. We get sketch maps of MOSA villages from the revenue departments. Then we get Musawi maps from the revenue departments and scanned it. The next step is mosaicing of Musawis, then georeferencing, and then development of MOSA map. Next step is digitization of MOSA boundaries on satellite images. And the next, demarcation of EAs with the help of manual map. Next step is field verification, that is collection of POIs and with the help of GPS. And then lab work. And the final, we get the digitized rural blocks. These are the results applying the GIS mapping. The digitization of all urban areas, that is 616 urban areas in Pakistan, have been digitized. And we have completed about 20% digitization work of rural areas in Pakistan. We have some limitations in its applications. One, deficiency of technical expertise GIS professionals. Second, expensive GIS softwares and related support, as well as professionally trained workforce that is also expensive and costly to retain. And costly and outdated satellite imagery, as well as their unavailability for the whole country, especially for rural areas. And the final conclusion, diffusion of GIS technology in the mapping procedures has completely altered the way in which the country can be mapped. GIS has not only made certain the legitimacy of census mapping, as well as yield the most organized and disciplined census in the census history through the credible demarcation of EBs and SCs, that is supervisory areas. The benefits of GIS mapping are not restricted to the census and survey, and it also opened the way for more informed decision making at governmental level and invited the stakeholders for further research in this domain. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Janjua, for your presentation, and it's great to see that this approach is having the effect on the census, but also more broadly in terms of informed decision making in other areas. And thanks to our participants for your patience as we tried to line up your slides with your words. Thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of the 6 presentations, and we have now got some time for a final round of discussion. There's been a few questions added to the chat box and answered, in fact, by Jang on his work on a statistical cloud. So we'll come back to those as needed. But now let's start with some questions to you, Nanda. One is from Shafa, I think, no, from Nefriana, beg your pardon, on has your method for implementing the short-run forecasting of international tourism, what's it been during this COVID-19 pandemic? Are you there, Nanda?
Please. Hello?
Yes, now we hear you. Go ahead.
Actually, it is done when the situation is normal. ARIMA is based on past tendency only. It gives us idea about past values. If we use the effect of other factors, we can use multivariate time series model, such as VAR, VECM, distributed lag models. It may use when the data is stationary, but in case due to COVID-19 it becomes non-stationary. There is so many effects due to COVID-19. Most of the factors affect on tourism sectors, so that it may lead in not correct way, but it gives little bit frameworks only. Thank you.
Thank you, Nanda. And I was wondering if I could add a question to you as well. I was wondering what has been the involvement and response from the users of tourism statistics there in Nepal? Have they been involved as you're developing this model to predict, and what is their response to that?
Hello?
We hear you.
Sleep?
Did you get my question, Nanda?
Please tell me your questions due to
Yes,
network.
I was wondering what's been the involvement of the users of tourism statistics in Nepal in this model that you're developing to predict arrivals. Have your users been involved? Do they know what you're doing, and what has been their reaction to it?
I haven't used this one in tourism area. Just it has been used first times. Whether it will true or not, but based on past tendency, it is better, and our past arrivals are meet to these models, so it works well.
Great, thank you so much, Nanda. Mr. Janjua, in Pakistan, there's a question for you from Jan Salinas. He would like to know what particular software did you use in your digitization?
Thank you, Jessica. We are using ArcGIS version 10.2 in digital mapping in Pakistan. Okay.
Great. Thank you. And there were some great questions to to you, Jang, which I think you've answered just about all of them. We had a number asking about, what stage of development you were at with the data middle platform. Has it been accomplished or is it still ongoing? And you've responded that you've completed the preliminary design and development is going ahead. And it was due to be done within 3 years, but of course the current situation with COVID-19, things have changed. You also had a question about data privacy and security from Nefriana, and the answer was that it was positioned as a private cloud, so it's still within the statistical domain of your office and subject to all the strict privacy and security measures there. Some questions from Victor, thank you, which is about whether the data middle platform and small front end, can I ask, what infrastructure or items weren't or cannot be hosted in that platform? And you've provided your answer to that it can be divided into many subclasses and the DMP is one that can be committed to the reusability of data-related aspects. And I think that you also provided an answer to the question about whether you're using AliCloud commercial cloud services, and that you have built a strategic collaboration with Alibaba, but until now you're not practically used that commercial cloud service. So we are very close to the end of our session, and I would like to sincerely thank all of our presenters. It's not easy for them to reduce their presentations into 8 minutes. There's a lot of interesting detail in these papers, and I congratulate all 6 of them for being able to bring that down into a succinct presentation here today. And thank you all for your time in listening and contributing your questions. I think there's been quite a useful dialogue, and now we know more about the work that's going on in these 6 national statistical systems. We've seen practical examples in terms of our session aims, we've seen practical examples from Indonesia and Malaysia of how mapping business processes has highlighted where duplication and gaps can be overcome and opportunities found for transforming the production of statistics. And it's been great to see models developed by the statistical community over many years being applied in practice in different countries. And sharing experiences in developing and adapting and implementing these different modernisation tools and concepts is really one of the strengths of this network, working together to discuss and the lessons learned, whether it's face-to-face or online as we've had this week. It's such an important part of this community and such an important part of the process of transforming official statistics for the better.